What's up, guys? Back at another one. Yes, I'm still wearing all this my maintenance clothes. So a little bit of dart maintenance for you. We're gonna be doing an oil change. Ladies and gentlemen, now with an oil change, one of the key rules of thumb that I use is with synthetic. I typically do it every 5,000 miles. Some manufacturers will say upwards of like 10,000. We're dealing with a boosted car. These darts are tedious for burning oil. So I try to stick to 5,000 miles. Maybe every 1,000, I do go ahead and check the oil level. I believe last time I checked it, I probably used maybe 1/4 of a quart. For all of you measurement tiers, you can go ahead and figure out how much that really is. But yeah, it's always good to go ahead and check that because a motor with no oil is definitely not a good motor. Now, the motor oil that we will be using today, give me just a second if I can actually get to the car. Got our lovely Pennzoil. As you can see, this has actually been the only motor oil that I use. Now just a little disclaimer on here. This is still a recap of everything that first shop had done with replacing the motor. I did look over the paperwork, and the paperwork does show 5W30. The Dart does not call for 5W30, it calls for 5W40. And like any boosted car, it does require full synthetic. So, what you're gonna go ahead and do first, I've already started and then remembered I need to hit record. Go ahead and find a jack point or a pinch weld. Go ahead and jack up your car. Typically going ahead and using a jack stand will be ideal for safety. But once again, just like with anything motorized, whether you're doing a modification, maintenance, or anything that requires you sticking your hand in the motor, make sure that the motor has cooled down. It gets very hot. Alrighty, so once you go ahead and jack up your car, you want to go ahead and make sure you have everything that you need. So, what you're going to go ahead and need, the Dart 1.4 liter does call for 4 quarts of oil. You're gonna need an oil filter. The Dodge Dart does use these, I believe they're known as like a paper filter. I used to hate these early on until I got a car that utilizes them. The Dart's an exception for it, and I'll explain why here in a moment. I feel like it makes an oil change super easy, so oil changes really shouldn't take you that long. You're gonna need a couple of sockets, I believe. We'll double check when we get down there. I believe the oil pan does require a 14mm socket. The big one is going to be for the paper filter, which is located right down there. We'll go ahead and get the exact socket that we'll be using because I'm gonna have to go through a couple of them. But yeah, make sure you have all the correct tools before you begin this, just in case you need to go ahead and make a run to your automotive store. Let's go ahead and get underneath the car, start draining some oil, because that will take a minute. So it's a little dark. Sun has set quite a bit. You're going to shine a light right down there. There's your oil pan. And then there is your drain plug that you will need to loosen. Make sure that you do have some type of pan to go ahead and have all your oil go into. And then once you go ahead and have your oil pan in there, you're gonna get underneath your car. You don't need to have it right away. Make sure you have the right socket. Make sure you're on lefty-loosey. Alright, now that the bolt is broken, that took much longer, because shops like to over-torque for some odd reason. Try to get them to come back, or try to get you to come back, so they can service your oil. So, now that we have that done, go ahead and take a quick look. Sorry, adjusted so you guys can see.
So here's our bolt that we just went ahead and broke. So how we're gonna go ahead and do this, try to do it as clean as possible. So you're gonna go ahead and start to loosen it by hand once it's broken. You can go ahead and do it by hand. Now, while you go ahead and unscrew this, you wanna be pressing against it, pushing it in as you loosen it. I know it sounds a little weird, but essentially what's happening is it's keeping any oil from just being able to sip right out. You may end up starting to see it to drip a little bit, so I would recommend having some kind of rag so you don't ruin your driveway. But here we go. Sorry, trying to do this so you guys can actually see it. So see, I am putting pressure against it as I loosen it by hand. Slowly but surely. And I'm maneuvering the oil catcher, whatever you want to call it, precisely where it's going to drop. Now, you want to be careful not to lose the bolt if possible, but if you have one of these pans that has kind of a filter, you're good. So, you almost got it. Just moving the pan a little bit more. Alright, it's about loose now. There goes some oil dripping. Go ahead, and then once you're fully ready, go ahead and loosen it a little bit more, and then pop it out. Just like that. Now, over evaluation, I am not liking the color of this oil either, but it does look better than the spark plugs did, if you saw the last video, which I'll put a link right here. So just go ahead and just let it drain for a little bit, and you know, just make sure everything's good. We're gonna go ahead and go up to the top of the car now, where the engine goes.
Now, here is something you do want to evaluate with your drain plug now that we're above the car. So you see that little gasket on there? Always ensure that that gasket is back on there. If it is showing ripped, torn, or anything else, make sure to replace it. They're super cheap. I try to change my oil drain plugs maybe once every 6 months, just to keep it safe. I believe I can get them at like AutoZone or O'Reilly's or any automotive store. I think I usually pay about like $8 to $10 for them. So very cheap, but very useful. Now that we're still waiting for the oil to drain, but now we're gonna go ahead and tackle where the filter is located. So the socket that I always end up using is a 1 by 1/8 socket. It is pretty big. Not the biggest I've seen, but still relatively big. So we're gonna go ahead, the filter, fingers crossed, isn't as tight as how that oil drain plug is. So we're gonna go ahead and take that off. One of the things I would recommend is in that little crevice underneath in here, I always put a microcloth there just because when we go ahead and loosen this, you are gonna see oil drip slightly as you pull it out. And one, you don't wanna ruin your driveway, or two, if you're fortunate enough and still have a splash guard, you don't wanna have that oil just seeping right through. Now that that is loosened, we're just gonna go ahead and loosen it by hand furthermore. Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. There we go. Not as tight. I mean, definitely need an extension to go ahead and get in there. But as you can see, I have my rag right down there, just to play it safe. And we're gonna go ahead, here she comes. Slowly, and then see where the, oh yeah, we got oil dripping. Oop. There we go.
Don't fall off the edge.
Oh man, I am not liking that. That's that. So, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I know I mentioned it in the spark plug video. So, when my car went ahead and hydrolocked, the shop that replaced the motor put 5W30 in this, and it requires 5W40. And the car's only been driving for 500 miles. That's why I'm changing it now, because I do not want to ruin this motor. So, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be this dark, but it's pretty dang dark. What we're gonna go ahead and do now, so we went ahead and removed our, excuse me, our paper filter. So we're gonna go ahead and just remove that. You could just simply just pop it up. Just like that. and just kind of dab it. That's why I'm using this microcloth, just so that way I'm not making a mess. So we're gonna go and just set that one down right there. And now, on a freshly done microcloth, we're gonna go ahead and get our new filter. Now, one of the big things you do wanna do, before I forget, allow me to get my flathead screwdriver. Alrighty, now with a Phillips head screwdriver, we are going to go ahead and remove the old gasket. Now, I really don't have to do this, even though they use the wrong oil. The gasket should still be okay, but I'm not going to. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is just take the flathead. We're just gonna go ahead and work it underneath that gasket. Have more oil pour out, be careful. So we have this lovely little microcloth. And this is gonna go ahead and make sure that everything stays nice and secure. So I feel that the flathead works the easiest, but whatever works for you. I know some people try to cut it. I just don't want to damage the plastic. Now comes the new gasket, which is a big thing to definitely check for before you start this whole project. Because the last thing you want to go ahead and do is either one, use the incorrect, or go ahead and get a paper filter and then find out you don't have a gasket, and you don't want to use the old one and risk having to reuse oil. So, old-timey thing, I've heard mixed things about this, about actually going ahead and doing the oil on the band. I always do it, I don't know what it really does. I've heard some people say, yeah, I do it all the time. My father's done it all the time. And I've heard other people just say like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. But we're just gonna go ahead and just slip that on. There is a crevice. I wanna make sure it's on the right one or else it will not sit correctly. So just go ahead and work it. It is the biggest gutter out of all of them. A little hard to see, but I'm just working it down. Check all your edges. I even like press down a little bit on it. And there you go. Now, here is your lovely new filter. And all you're gonna go ahead and do is just pop it right in there. Push it down until it clips. You're good to go ahead and just screw this on there. Torque-wise, there's probably a number specifically out there for this. However, I try to just do it hand tight. It doesn't need to be crazy tight, just enough to make sure that oil does not seep out of this. Alrighty, now we're gonna go ahead and just place it right back in there. That filter's tucked in there nicely, so even if it's upside down, it's not gonna fall over. So I'm going ahead, you can hear that. It's just turning right in there. Do it till it's hand tight. And then I like to give it just one extra little thing, or just enough, because if you feel, it's gonna be hard to get the camera in here, there's actually a gap in between the two. You wanna eliminate that, so make sure you go ahead and get that tightened down safely. Alrighty. So now that we're back under the car, hello light again. So you're gonna go ahead and I just went ahead and hand tighten this. I wiped this as well. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure your socket wrench is on righty-tighty. And all you're gonna go ahead and do is just give it a couple of and That's all you need. You don't need to gorilla press it. You don't need to well, I probably shouldn't swear, I'm sorry. And that's all you need. You don't need to press aggressively. You don't need to be a gorilla on it. The pressure on there, because of that orange gasket, will hold it in with the pressure. Now comes the important part, pouring the oil. Also to mention, this is all that's left underneath the car, so before you lower your vehicle, remove anything that could be under it. The last thing you want to do, especially if you have a lowered car, is smash the oil pan, or whatever you want to call it, wherever you're putting your trash oil. Oh hey, you guys got here fast. Okay, so what we're gonna go ahead and do next, as we go ahead and adjust the camera so we can all see each other, we're gonna go ahead and now begin pouring the oil. Now this is a very tedious thing. One thing I am gonna go ahead and do, I'm not gonna go ahead and record it, but I am gonna go ahead and empty out my oil catch can. If you have an oil catch can, you should be already aware of what you need to do to empty it and reattach it. Alrighty, so your next part is you're gonna go ahead and now add your beautiful full synthetic Pennzoil Platinum Euro Synthetic, made from natural gas. They did not pay me to say this. So what you're gonna go and do, you're gonna do your oil cap. Mine is red because I'm extra like that, and they I'm sorry, they Gorilla Press this one too. Holy, my goodness. Okay, a message to anyone with a shop. You don't need to Incredible Hulk it, my goodness. It's an oil cap. It's like they didn't want me to be in there. Alrighty. So apparently, they want me to ruin my oil cap. Those guys, holy, okay. There's a piece taken out of it by how tightly that they shoved it in there. Ladies and gentlemen, be careful which shop you decide to go with. I bet for dang certain I'm never going to that one again. Okay, so back to putting oil in it. So easiest way to do it, you want to go ahead and pour. I know this is going to seem a little weird, but you do want to pour it from the top. Reason for it, if you're doing it like this, it's going to gargle a lot, which could cause splashing, and splashing is not good because that means less oil goes in your car and more goes on your car. So I'm wrapping it around because I'm not perfect. I've done this several times. I still spill, but that's okay because we can admit it. Definitely make sure that this is your last step before starting the car. Make sure your oil drain plug is on. Make sure your filter is on tightly. Because the last thing you need is to be cleaning the perfectly good oil. And steady, you don't gotta go quick with it. Now, does a funnel work better? Absolutely. Do we have a funnel? Nope. Can we make a funnel? Probably. Do we want to? No. Alrighty, so what you're gonna go ahead and do, just go ahead and move your cloth. If there's any mess or anything, just go ahead and wipe around. Now your oil cap does not need to be put on with incredible strength. Right there is fine. Actually, for the people, I should have shown this. So see where the Scorpions is onto its left? When they had it, it was all the way over toward almost like 11 o'clock. And that was the reason why it was so difficult. Be careful who you go to for anything. So now that the oil's in there, we're gonna go ahead and start up the car. You're gonna go ahead and just let it cycle, maybe for about 5 minutes, and you're good to go. All you need to do is go ahead and just let it idle for about 5 minutes. I will put in the description what to do to go ahead and reset to let everyone know how to reset that little light that says oil change soon or oil change required. That will be in the description below. But everything sounds good. Definitely just maintain your fluids. Everything's tight. Check your oil temperature. And yeah, I call that a success. So if you like the video, make sure to thumbs it up. Like, share, and subscribe. We're going to have more of this kind of stuff just because we do love doing this kind of stuff, and it's informative. Not a lot of people do this kind of stuff, weirdly enough. But thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.